was saying earlier today that a lot of media will soft pedal a take because they don't want blowback if they're wrong, and the internet has a big memory, has a vast memory. And so, a lot of people just don't want to throw it out there, and especially when it's a big market team with a loud, vocal, passionate fan base. And I said, I'm reading a story that Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator of the Jets, that Aaron Rodgers was given a heads up that they were going to hire Arthur Smith to call plays for their offensive coordinator. How many Super Bowl teams have to babysit one of their top coaches? That's essentially what that is. And my take is, you look at the Jets, and they have the toughest opener in the league at San Francisco, 3,000-mile flight as they rebuild their O-line. So San Francisco, you look at that and think that's a tough draw. But there is a sense that weeks 2 through 5 at Tennessee, hosting the Patriots, the Broncos, London, Minnesota, that's where they gain momentum. But Tennessee's home opener off a probable loss at Chicago, and on a short week for the Jets because the Niners game's on Monday night, is not as easy as you think. Add to the fact that you don't really know what Bo Nix and Sean Payton are. You won't have much tape. And the Vikings game is in London, and those are always weird games. Throw in the end of the season where it's at Tua, at Trevor Lawrence, Matt Stafford, at Josh Allen, and the Miami offense again. I don't think the schedule screams 12 and 13 wins. And I'll just say it now. I think they're an 8-9 win team tops. And what I used as an example earlier, I said, let me give you a couple of teams that people like, but they have concerns about. So I'll give you some terms about these teams. This team has an excellent head coach, ascending star quarterback, variety of strong weapons, a great left tackle in their prime, and no clear-cut favorite in division. That's the Houston Texans. But I hear things like they're really young, C.J. Stroud sophomore slump, owners a bit wacky. That's the Houston Texans. Come on, Colin. They'll pull back with Trevor Lawrence healthy and Anthony Richardson healthy. Here's another team. Super Bowl winning head coach, star quarterback still elite, dependable weapons, 4 top draft picks on their defensive front, and an incredibly stable and wealthy organization. That's the Rams, and virtually nobody's picking them for anything other than a possible wild card spot in the weaker NFC. There's not universal buyers on the Texans and the Rams. And you want me to buy into the Jets as an 11-12 win team. Let me give you things about the Rams which would seem problematic. An unproven defensive head coach who has lost 2 out of 3 games he's coached in the league. A prickly 40-year-old quarterback coming off a major injury. A rebuilt O-line with an old left tackle. An offensive coordinator that both Aaron and Robert Saleh were okay, adding an assistant to help him call plays, and at best, impulsive, shaky ownership. You don't love the Rams and the Texans, and all the things that matter to me are much better. So my takeaway on this is you're trying to get me to buy into stuff, and I don't think it's a Super Bowl viable stock. I think the Rams and the Texans may be just slightly out of the Super Bowl bubble. They're both very young. The Texans are very young on offense. The Rams very young on defense. But I think they're both on the precipice of, if they broke through this year, both of them ended up in a conference championship, I wouldn't be shocked. If the Kansas City Chiefs and the Texans met, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't. Joe Burrow struggles to stay healthy. Buffalo's been disappointing. Diana Rossini this week on the Jets offseason this year has been different than last year.
The Jets have done an incredible job of just quieting the noise. Colin, remember this time last year? We were going bonkers. I was on your show like every other day talking about the Jets. Aaron looks amazing in camp. But in terms of tempering the emotions and the expectations, We are not going to hear Robert Saleh talk Super Bowl. They've learned. That is the one thing, that's my biggest takeaway of the offseason from my conversations with coaches, with players. They've been humbled.
Well, yeah, they had to be. So, and I go back to listen, Vegas makes mistakes. Last year, I thought they were really light on the Rams. We were right. The year before, my big buy was Minnesota. So the last 2 years, there's been a team that I just didn't. This year, I think they're really light on Denver. I think the division's tough, but Harbaugh's got a brand new staff. They don't have a lot of weapons on the outside. Kansas City still has wide receiver issues. And the Raiders are awful. So I think Denver's going to be a 7 or an 8 win team. I think they're going to be closer to the Jets. I think the Jets and Denver will be closer than to each other than anybody wants to acknowledge. Vegas sees the Jets as a 10-win team and sees the Broncos as a 5-win team. And I think they're both in that 7, 8, 9 category. I think so much of New York, so much depends on early success. First of all, you got to remember, in the NFL now, preseason, veteran offensive linemen don't play. That's a fact. Secondly, offensive line is the most important, instructive, and cohesive unit. That's really cohesion is the offensive line. There's a lot of talent on the defensive line, but you can have individual. Max Crosby isn't necessarily reliant on a defensive tackle. He's going to get to his guy. Tackles are reliant on guards, are reliant on centers. Quarterbacks are reliant on all of them. And the Jets have a rebuild offensive line with an old left tackle, an older right tackle, a rookie, and Elijah Vera-Tucker who struggles to stay healthy. And they're not going to play much early. So that early success, like that Tennessee game, has to be a win. Because at the end of the season with a 40-year-old quarterback and an old left tackle, you can't be hobbling into those last 5 or 6 games. That is rough. So, my take is if you told me the offensive line gelled in late September, then I think the Jets are interesting. That's when they're interesting. But if you're going into October and you're like, we got injuries on the O-line, it's not a very good team.
You want to guess the Jets-Titans point spread for week 2? And you're right. The Jets are on a short week after playing.
They're on a short week. Tennessee's home opener. I would say Jets favored by 4.
Wow, nailed it. Exactly. So the Jets are 4-point favorites in that one. Now, the next 2 weeks.
Well, New England's the worst team in the league.
And that's on a Thursday.
So again, they get another short week. Yeah. I would say Jets are favored by 7.
7.5. And then the following week against Denver, Jets have 10 days off before your big showdown with Bo Nix.
And they're at home against Denver. I think they'll be favored by 6.
7.5. So and I just looked at it. First 12 games, the Jets are favored in 11 of them.
You didn't mention the first game.
They're 5.5-point underdogs in San Fran against the best team in the NFL. Sorry, Chiefs fans.
Okay.
They're favored in 11 of their first 12 games.
Can you imagine if I had to hire an assistant to help you reading Herdline News? I mean, literally, listen, about every third story with Jason, we have to fill in for him because he struggles after the second story.
Running out of gas in the third hour, yeah.
He's very tired.
Hour, it's wearing down. I'm like LeBron, 39, I just wear down late.
Get gassed.
Yeah, that would not be great.
Doesn't that worry you a little?
Oh, there's certainly lots of concerns for this team, Cowherd. Come on. Longest playoff drought in the NFL. It's brutal. It's embarrassing.
12 years?
My kids will not root for the Jets because they know they stink. They're like, why do you root for the Jets?
I always liked your kids.